from the perspective of sitting by a desk in front of a classroom. Or sometimes a boss addressing his workers, a head of a family in terms of how he treats his family. There is no question that the overriding feeling, the consistent atmosphere in the air has to be one of understanding, one of tranquility, one of peace. But then again, every once in a while, there has to be a reminder of a sense of discipline. I'll share it with you from a classroom perspective. You sit by a desk and sometimes you begin to, as we say, schmooze with the Talmidim a little bit. Sometimes hashkafin yanim, sometimes even in the Gemara itself. And everyone is stating their opinion and people are calling out, and then there are always two kids in the back that discuss their opinions amongst themselves which have absolutely nothing to do with the matter at hand. And at one point you want to bring it to an end and you say, Rabbi, say, okay, let's get back to the Gemara now. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you slam down on the table and you give an angry stare and everyone gets quiet, and then you proceed again. Gone is the angry stare. Gone is the sense of intimidation. It's back to a normal relationship. But if you didn't have, from time to time, that one moment of enough is enough, ad can, then you would lose the sense of control and ability to discipline that is necessary even in terms of a casual relationship. And in a sense, that's what Chazal teach us when they tell us that Bilam didn't possess an intrinsic power to be able to curse. What the Rebbeinu Shalom did for Bilam is to grant him insight. The Gemara in the Masechtas Brachos tells us that every single day there is a fraction of a moment when Kaviyachol, the Rebbeinu Shalom's anger is kindled at mankind. Kel Zoyim B'chol Yom. Hashem is angered every day. Bilam knew the split second of this divine anger. And if he would begin to pronounce his curse upon someone at that very moment, then there is a possibility that Hashem would allow the curse to be fulfilled. And that's what Bilam would try to take advantage of, to inflict curses at the appropriate time. Now the Gemara in Masechtas Brachos says that this Regesh Hozam actually lasts a tiny, tiny fraction of a second. And as a matter of fact, the Gemara even questions how Bilam could possibly verbalize the curse, how he can physically get it out of his mouth in such a short span of time. And the Gemara answers that he would have to begin the curse during the Regesh Hozam, even though he would conclude it afterwards. And the Gemara tells us a story. There was a certain Apikairis in the neighborhood of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi that was constantly being the side of Yeshua ben Levi, taunting him and making fun of Psukim and ridiculing the Torah. So Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi wanted to curse him during this Regesh Hozam. And even though only Bilam was privy to know when it was, but the Gemara tells us there is some type of a siman. If you would take a rooster, you can identify a certain color on it. If you hold it in a certain position, you can figure out when the Regesh Hozam was. And Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi tried to do this test in order to curse that Apikairis. And just as the Regesh Hozam was about to come around, he fell asleep. So when he woke up, he said, it appears that it is not Hashem's will that we should engage in these types of actions. And furthermore, it's not good for a tzaddik to cause punishment to someone else, even if you have legitimate reason to curse someone. But the mere scenario that one person causes a curse to another ultimately backfires. Now Chazal tell us that had Bilam cursed Klal Yisrael during the moment of heavenly anger, he could chas v'shalom have done very serious damage. The Rebbeinu Shalom therefore did a special chesed for Klal Yisrael, and the Rebbeinu Shalom omitted this Regesh Hozam from the heavenly schedule. It didn't happen during these days that Bilam tried to curse. And that's why Bilam in despair cried, what do you want from me? My whole modus operandi is to coincide my curse with the heavenly anger. If there's no heavenly anger, what am I to do? So when Bilam saw that his plan failed, so he had another malicious idea. Seduce the Jewish man to sin. And so they commanded their daughters to adorn themselves to entice the Yidden. Balak, the king of Moav, ordered his own daughter to try to schacter shalom b'machshul Moshe Rabbeinu. And it's interesting how the Medrash explains what happened. Bilam suggested that they set up like a huge flea market or a bazaar in the vicinity of the Jewish camp. Sell articles of clothing to attract the Jews. In other words, if you're going to set up a shop, l'shem chet, obviously no Yid is going to pass by. The Yetzer Hara never tries a frontal attack in broad daylight. He never says, just go and be chet over there. But you set up a camp where they're going to sell articles of clothing. Ametzia, listen, it's business. No, a Yid here, there's a sale going on. He's going to come. That's legitimate. And even here, Bilam's cunning design to trap the Jews has to be emphasized. Bilam counseled, place the old women at the stands outside and put the young girls inside the booths. Because if you're going to put the young ones outside again, Klal Yisrael is going to shy away. But you see an old lady standing by a booth and she's offering such a Gevalige Messiah, such a fantastic sale. Who could turn it down? And the Mela, this and other factors that were involved. First, the lesser ones amongst Klal Yisrael started going to this flea market, to this bazaar. They went for a stroll to investigate it in their spare time. Chazal stressed this. The and Yaakov and Chavis Das pointed out, had they spent their spare time studying Torah, being Oisik and Ma'aseh Chesed, instead of just going touring to see what's doing in this flea market and in that mall, this would have never happened. Al Kopanim, the old woman would be stationed outside. She would display her merchandise. She would quote a price. And the Yid would say, that's called cheap? And she would say, oh, well, listen, if you want the real cheap ones, it's on the inside, the opposite of a fruit store. The cheap ones are on the inside and the expensive ones are on the outside. So the Yid would go into the tent, and then he would encounter the girl that was set up with her plot to destroy him through hate, and she would start chatting with him, and she would offer the gifts for free on the condition that he would sit down and talk to her, and then she would show him that the food was prepared al pi halacha, was all kosher, there was a fantastic hashgacha at this hotel, nothing to worry about. And she had a flask of heavy wine ready. And when the Yid was intoxicated, he was invited to begin to join her first of the service to Avodah Zarah, just learn about it a little bit, particularly the Avodah Zarah of Baal Pa'ar, and you know the rest of the story. Most of Klal Yisrael evaded this whole trap. It was the Erev Rav, the lesser amongst them, that fell in. And also, for various different reasons, Shevet Shimon in particular was caught. And one thing led to another, and Zimri, the Nasi of Shevet Shimon, brazenly challenged Moshe in public. He said, Ben Amram, is she mutter to me? Can I marry Balak's daughter? And when Moshe Rabbeinu said no, so he said to her, so who allowed you to marry Sapphira? And Moshe Rabbeinu did not know what to do at that point. Whatever this means, and Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know what to do, but we're just quoting the Lashon of Chazal. And Pinchas jumped up and he ran over to Moshe Rabbeinu, his great uncle, and said, did you not teach us that a boy al aram is kanoim poigen boy? That someone who wants to marry a Gentile woman may be attacked by a kanoi, by a zealot? So Moshe Rabbeinu said to Pinchas, if you're the one to remember the halacha, go ahead and do it. And Pinchas knew that he was risking his life. He knew the members of Shevet Shimon could kill him. And he began to speculate how he should do it, when he should do it. But then when he saw that the Megeifa was starting, he knew there was no time to waste. He said, there's no time to plan, I just have to do it with Mesiras Nefesh. So Chazal tell us that he took a spear, he hid the metal part in his cloak, made it look like a walking stick, convinced the guards that he wanted to join them, and he came in and he killed Zimri and Cosby, and that stopped the Megeifa. I want to share with you a beautiful mahalach that I heard from my father, the Shem of Tzaddik HaKayim. How we can weave all of this together with a beautiful golden thread. As we explained at the beginning of our shir, the purpose of this heavenly anger, this rega shel zam, is similar to the marshal of the Rebbe banging on the table. The Rebbeinu Shem conducts this world with midas hachesed, with midas harachanim, but there has to be at one point a sense of pachad, a sense of fear, a rega shel zam. That's it. If you're going to continue this way, you're going to be in big trouble. A person has to get that feeling at least in some way, somehow, for some small duration of time throughout the day to keep him in line. And that's the regesh ozam that emanates from Shemayim and manifests itself in different ways. You don't constantly scream. If a person constantly screams and yells, then he's defeating the purpose. Then the screaming and yelling amounts to nothing. It just amounts to bad character and to an uncomfortable environment. But from time to time, occasionally, for such a short fraction of time, just to lay down the law, to establish a sense of discipline, this is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu does. And this is what we have to learn from as well. Now, Bilam took advantage of that sense of discipline. If we can go back to the mashal for the moment with the classroom and forgive the analogy. Suppose the Rebbe slams down on the table and says, okay, if I say enough, I want everyone quiet. And simultaneously with the bang, as soon as everyone gets silent, the clown of the class gets up and makes some type of remark and everyone starts laughing. So you have no choice. You have to send him out. You have to call down his parents. You have to discipline him. If he didn't make the remark during that moment, maybe sort of it could have been pressed out. But at that moment, he threatened, he challenged this whole principle of the Regesh Ozam. If he didn't respect it and remain silent and sit with their Cheretz, at least for that moment until things are sort of brought back into perspective, then you lose the whole power of the Regesh Ozam. Then the bang of the table amounts to nothing. So you always have someone in a classroom that's going to entice the clown to make a comment during that bang because he wants the excitement. And nebuch, you'll always have the clown who needs the attention and he's going to take the bait. In order to get the laugh, he's willing to sacrifice himself and pay a price. And this was Bilam's method of operation. He would curse during the Regesh Ozam. He would try to be mi'oirech chet during the Regesh Ozam, which as a result would bring immediate punishment. So what did the Rebbeinu Shalom do? In order to prevent Bilam from successfully cursing, there was no Regesh Ozam. Bilam thought he's stuck. He can't curse. The Rebbeinu Shalom is not getting angry today. As if, I'm not going to allow for this type of situation where someone could get into trouble. So Bilam went a step further and said, let me make this calculation. The whole purpose of the Regesh Ozam is a disciplinary measure for humanity. A person can draw on this Regesh Ozam and be machnas a Yiras Shemayim in his heart, a fear for Chet, a fear of the Rebbeinu Shalom. So the Rebbeinu Shalom took away the Regesh Ozam, I shouldn't be able to curse them. Zok Bilam, I'll take advantage of this from the opposite angle. I'm going to try to entice the Bnei Yisrael to Chet by sinning with the Bnei Moav and the Bnei Midian. And where under normal circumstances they would never do it because there is a tremendous amount of Yiras Shemayim and Yiras Ha'onish in their heart as a result of the Regesh Ozam. But today, or these days, that the Rebbeinu Shalom took away the Regesh Ozam, so there is uncontrollable ahava, or rather an ahava that is extremely difficult to control. The normal restrictive measures that keeps the Yetzer Hara in place has been suspended. So let me take advantage of that. And therefore, Bilam counseled, now is the time to try to get Klal Yisrael to Chet. And if they're going to sink into Znus and subsequently Avodah Zarah, they'll be lost anyhow. The Rebbeinu Shalom will punish them. And Pinchas looked around and he saw what was happening. He understood right away how things were unfolding. And the Megeifa started. So what did Pinchas do? He took that spear and he said that the Rebbeinu Shalom can't give the Regesh Ozam because Bilam's going to take advantage of it and curse Klal Yisrael. So therefore, the Rebbeinu Shalom wants us to provide for the Regesh Ozam. I will do it. I'm going to give this bang on the table in our mashal. I'm going to take this spear and charge forward with Mesiras Nefesh. And that is Pshat in the Pasuk, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen, Heishiv es Chamasi v'al b'nei Yisrael. He removed the wrath from on the b'nei Yisrael. How? B'kanoyes kinasi b'soicha. How does Rashi translate the word b'kanoyes kinasi? Pinchas took my revenge. The anger that I should have presented to the world, Pinchas went and did it for me. Well, if the Rebbeinu Shalom was supposed to do it, how come the Rebbeinu Shalom didn't express this anger? And the answer is, we now understand, because Bilam would have taken advantage of it. So then Bilam turned around and tried to take advantage of the lack of anger. So Pinchas came and said, fine, so I'll do it. And as a result, he stopped the Megeifa. Because suddenly Klal Yisrael was taken aback. What happened over here? Gilval, what did we do? We were fighting. How can we allow this? Where was our Yerushalayim? Pinchas brought back that Yerushalayim that the Regesh Holzam usually does. The Bnei Yisrael says that there is no coincidence. Parshas Pinchas always introduces the 3 weeks. He says that's why you have the Parsha of the Musafim, all of the Karbanis, all the Yom Tovim Dafka in this week's Parsha. We have the Bnei Salachar who came to complain about their share in Eretz Yisrael and the halachos of the inheritance of Eretz Yisrael, Dafka in this week's Parsha. In Matis Masai as well, you have the boundaries of Eretz Yisrael, which we have the Shem Yisrael who will be Zoicha to in its entirety. The Dafka comes out during the 3 weeks, during the time of Churban, as an encouragement to us that as difficult as these days are, they are an opportunity for us to sense the heavenly discipline. Indeed, they are difficult days. They are dangerous days. May the Rebbeinu Shalom protect us. Want us to be extra careful. But it's the Kadosh Baruch Hu's Rega Shel Zah. It's the Kadosh Baruch Hu's reminder. We're in Golus. We have to pull ourselves together. We have to stay in line. And if the class responds to the bang on the table by instantly becoming quiet and willing to be obedient and willing to listen, no one tries to test. No one tries to be an oyiber chacham. If our attitude is, it is the 3 weeks, it is a difficult time. Okay, I feel it. I feel the bang of the Rebbeinu Shalom. What can I do? How much more chesed can I do to undo the sin of chinam that destroyed the Beis HaMikdash? How can I be extra careful in not speaking Lashon Hara? If this is our attitude, so no further discipline is necessary after the bang. And on the contrary, when you bang hard and suddenly everyone jumps into place, so you want to show the class that the purpose of the bang was to get you to be obedient, to control the fringes, that it doesn't get out of hand. But now we want a casual feeling between ourselves. You want to smile after the bang if the bang accomplishes what it had to. And therefore you bedafka have, as the Bnei Yisrael explains, the distribution of Eretz Yisrael and the karbanis of all the Yom Tovim over here in Parshas Pinchas. The introduction to the 3 weeks to explain the meaning of the bang, of how if we read it properly, it's not a prelude to disaster. Chas v'shalom fakert. It is the beginning of a meaningful relationship between Klal Yisrael and the Rebbeinu Shalom. Our parsha begins basically with a yichus letter. Pinchas, who was Ben Elazar, the son of Elazar, Ben Aaron HaKohen. Why his yichus? So Rashi tells us the Shvatim, some of them, were Mevazah Pinchas. They said, look at him. Hariyisa ben Putizet, Shapitem avi imay agolim li avodah zara, referring to his maternal grandfather Yisrai. Yisrai who served all avodah zaras, who stuffed calves for avodah zara. This person with that kind of a yichus, he steps in over here, v'harag nasi shevet mi Yisrael, and he kills a nasi, a leader of an entire tribe. Basika says Rashi, bar hakasiv, the pasuk comes, and the pasuk is miyachisin after his paternal grandfather Aaron HaKohen. He was Pinchas ben Elazar, then Aaron HaKohen. The problem is the Shvatim also knew that. What really changed over here? The pasuk states the fact that his father's father was Aaron HaKohen, but that still doesn't change who his mother's father was. If this can be construed as somewhat of a criticism, even though Yisrael would come around to be the great tzaddik, but if his origin is considered a pgam, so what's changing over here? Or at least in the eyes of those who made this point of criticism, and were antagonizing Pinchas as a result of this. What changed? It is brought down in the Kisvei Arizal from the Zohar Kodesh that when Pinchas killed Zimri, Parcha Nishmasa, his neshama actually left him during the zenith, during the pivotal point of his Mesiras Nefesh. And that neshama was replaced by the neshama of Nadav and Avihu. What exactly that means, obviously, anyone who says that he truly understands it probably doesn't. Those who probably do won't explain it. But to the point that we could understand it, there was a koyach of Nadav and Avihu that went into him. An Ibur neshama, a nitzutz, a spark of their neshama. So after this act of Mesiras Nefesh, Pinchas was no longer just Pinchas. He was sort of a combination of Pinchas and his two uncles, Nadav and Avihu. And therefore, the pasuk says, Pinchas ben Elazar, Pinchas who until now was just ben Elazar, was now also ben Aaron HaKohen. In other words, don't read the pasuk Pinchas ben Elazar, the son of Elazar, who was the son of Aaron HaKohen, which of course is a Pashup Shat, but according to this, the pasuk is saying that it changed. He's now not just Pinchas ben Elazar, he's also ben Aaron HaKohen because he has Nadav and Avihu in him, and Nadav and Avihu were the sons of Aaron HaKohen. There are many, many pshatim in this. What exactly the shaychus is of Nadav and Avihu to the particular story of Pinchas, what relationship they would have. This is the understanding of the Yismach Yisrael. What was the chait of Nadav and Avihu? They were makrid in Eish Zara Asher Loitziva Oisam. By all accounts, Nadav and Avihu were great people. By all accounts, the fire that they were makrid had tremendous kiddusha. Their kavanah was l'shem shemayim. Their kavanah was to feel the kiddush of the Rabbeinu Shalom. They had great inyanim, and their objective was a tremendous hashpah for all of Klal Yisrael. Of course, however, they were missing the most basic, the most fundamental nekuda. And that's why their attempt at this great blessing would backfire. The prerequisite for any successful thing is, did HaKadosh Baruch Hu tell you to do it? Is there a mitzvah to do it? In all due respect to their great kavanah, but it was Asher Loitziva. Hashem said, I never asked you to do this. Now, is this true for everything? That if you weren't asked to do it, if there's no mitzvah to do it, then you don't do it? It's true for almost everything. There are certain areas in the Torah where, for whatever reason, the rule is halacha, but the ein morin came. That is the halacha, but we don't officially paskin that way. And one of these instances would be kana and pagan bar. Given this scenario, we have over here Nasi and Klal Yisrael, who is Boil Aramis, who marries this princess, is Mevav Moshe Rabbeinu. These are one of the circumstances where the halacha is act on your own. If you are angered, if you are determined to put your life on the line to rectify a situation, then you have not a command, but a green light. But Pinchas still clarified the situation before he acted on his emotions. Yes, Pinchas had a drive to step in, even though he knew very well it could possibly cost him his life and cost him the kahuna. Pinchas was motivated to step in over here, but Pinchas waited. He approached Moshe Rabbeinu. He said, am I allowed to act on my emotions? Moshe Rabbeinu said, I don't know. Pinchas answered, but you taught us that under such circumstances, one who has a feel for this can do it. Halacha the ein morin kain. And Moshe Rabbeinu said, you are right. The Torah gives you permission. And with the flame of Mesiras Nefesh burning within him, and contrary to his antagonists, with an objective of a Havas Yisrael, to bring Klal Yisrael together, Pinchas went and he killed Zimri and his counterpart. This was the tikkun of Nadav and Avihu. Nadav and Avihu also had a desire, a burn, a flaming passion to bring Klal Yisrael closer to the Rabbeinu Shalom, to bring themselves to be Nehenim Miziv Shechina that were maktif on the Ketairos, but they did not have the green light. HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed for their neshamis to associate themselves with Pinchas, who acted on the same emotions but with permission in the proper time. Now, even Pinchas' antagonists looked at Pinchas after the story and they saw a different Pinchas. They saw now a Pinchas that had the Siyata Deshmaya, the Ibur Neshama, as we discussed several weeks ago, the heavenly gift of two great tzaddikim, of Nadav and Avihu. They knew he wasn't the same person. So when the pasuk tells us, Pinchas, then Elazar, then Aaron HaKohen, and Rashi tells us this was to satisfy the complaints against him. How can an Einikel of Yisro do this to us? everything became very clear. They looked at Pinchas, this is what the Pasuk is saying, they looked at Pinchas and they saw that he was no longer just Ben Elazar, but he was also from the sons of Aaron HaKohen. And there was only one way he could possibly have been Zech to the Neshamis of Aaron HaKohen. By rectifying what Nadav and Avihu did wrong. They acted L'Shem Shemayim without permission, he acted L'Shem Shemayim with permission. That's why they went into him. The Shvatim had nothing to say anymore. This proved that Pinchas did not act as they charged, like a youthful, irresponsible person. Pinchas acted with the utmost responsibility, and that was waiting for permission, and then taking matters in his own hands, even at the expense of possibly his own life. The Bnei Yisachar says, Parshas Pinchas talks about the division of Eretz Yisrael. Matas Masei talks about the boundaries of Eretz Yisrael. And Parshas Pinchas always begins the 3 weeks, followed by Matas Masei, the second of the 3 weeks. And it always leads into Dvarim, the week before Tisha B'Av, where Moshe Rabbeinu addresses Klal Yisrael and the reason they didn't go into Eretz Yisrael. And the reason for this is because the Torah is promising us, despite the difficult season we are now experiencing, despite the 3 weeks, despite all of the pain, all of the wounds that it opens up when we think about the Galus in our difficult saga of history, HaKadosh Baruch Hu still says, but the final chapter is going to be the return of Klal Yisrael to Eretz Yisrael, the return of every Yid to his Nachla, to the inheritance of his forefathers. The day will come that you and I will have a Yichus letter all the way up to one of the 12 Shvatim, and we are going to be in our Chelik in Eretz Yisrael, the part that was inherited to us by virtue of our respective grandfathers who received their first Chelik in Eretz Yisrael. But now we sort of see how this parsha of the distribution of the land ties into the beginning of the parsha. Nadav and Avihu did not have any children. However, they were zeicha to a tikkun through other members of their family, which in a sense would mean that when Pinchas would inherit his part of the land, then they themselves would also be zeicha in some way or another to their chelik, to their shayrish. Because every time that the neshama has a shemayim from having a chelik in Eretz Yisrael, and every year does have a chelik in Eretz Yisrael, that's how the pruzbul works, Nadav and Avihu would be zeicha to as well. And it's also part of the message over here, why Parshas Pinchas, followed by Matis Masa, introduces the 3 weeks. The Torah is reminding us, despite the pain of Galus, despite all of the millions of neshamas that were lost, that weren't zeicha to live out their lives, that were sacrificed in transition as we move from Eretz Yisrael throughout the world and eventually back to Eretz Yisrael, ultimately, everyone comes back. Everyone has a place in Eretz Yisrael. Everyone has a tikkun. The original halakim of Eretz Yisrael were divided to the basic 600,000 neshamas, which by extension includes their wives and children as well. When Mashiach is going to come, Eretz Yisrael will once again be divided along those lines. And all of the neshamas will be there. Every neshama in Olam Haba, everyone who happens to be down here, whatever this means in terms of its preparation for Tchiyas HaMesa, but everyone has a shaychus back to their shayrish. Even those that appear to have been lost, ki lo yidach mimenu nidach, will be brought back. If not by virtue of their own schus, but by virtue of other members of their families who are close to them, or maybe even they themselves, in second or third chances to come down here to this world. In other words, never allow yourself to be depressed, for no one is lost. Klal Yisrael will do tshuva, Klal Yisrael will come back, and when they do so, all appropriate family members will be connected to them. The Rebbe Rabbunim was known to be especially happy during Parshas Pinchas. Besides the fact that this parsha introduces us how to distribute Eretz Yisrael, you have all of the musafim, the carbon musaf of all the Yom Tovim in this week's parsha. On every single Yom Tov throughout the year, ironically, we read from Parshas Pinchas, which introduces the 3 weeks. Thus, the famous Yiddish saying, "When Pinchas is in the heim, weint men, when Pinchas is in the fremd, lacht men." When Pinchas is at home, we cry. When Pinchas is out, then we laugh. No affront to anyone who happens to be named Pinchas. But all the saying means is when we read Pinchas, because it's Parshas Pinchas, it's the beginning of the 3 weeks. And when you read Pinchas throughout the year, when it's not really Parshas Pinchas, it's because it's one of the Yom Tovim. So we read from Parshas Pinchas because it has the musaf of that carbon, that Yom Tov. We read Pinchas on Sukkot and on Pesach and on Shavuos. So when Pinchas is in the friend, we laugh. But of course nothing is a coincidence. So why indeed are all of the Yom Tovim in this week's Parsha? In the Parsha that introduces the 3 weeks? The answer, says the Rebbe Rabbunim, Nadav and Avihu took advantage of the opening of the Mishkan. They saw what a carbon means. They saw what it means when Klal Yisrael comes close to the Rebbeinu Shalom, how the Shekhinah can manifest itself through the Beis HaMikdash, to have more than just a positive effect on Klal Yisrael, but to change the very nature of their essence. They were so excited about this that in a sense they were makriv themselves. Makriv themselves so close that their neshamas left them. And because they didn't have the protection of a mitzvah, because they were not commanded to do so, their neshamas would not return. Pinchas' neshama also left him. But because he was acting within the jurisdiction of Das Torah, it returned. Not only did it return for himself, but because his action, in terms of its Mesiras Nefesh, was so closely related to what Nadav and Avihu did, in terms of the ultimate objective of Ahava and Shalom for Klal Yisrael, Nadav and Avihu also returned through Pinchas. And whatever excitement Nadav and Avihu felt vis-a-vis the Karbonos, imagining what this can do for Klal Yisrael, in a sense was reinstated as a result of Pinchas' actions. And the Mela, the Parshios of Karbonos, the ultimate joy and simcha of every Yom Tov, which brings a Yid closer to the Rebbeinu Shalom, especially during the times of the Beis HaMikdash, when we could be early regular and makriv these Karbonos. This Parsha comes right over here where Nadav and Avihu returns. They were the first ones who went running towards the Mishkan by the chinuch of the Mishkan. They were overzealous. But now, after their tikkun, every carbon, especially the Karbonos Sibur, brings you in closer to the Rebbeinu Shalom. So in a sense, it's a kind of tribute to Nadav and Avihu. After all, this is what you wanted. You wanted to use the Mishkan as a way of bringing Klal Yisrael closer. In this parsha that you had your tikkun, here we're going to have all of the Yom Tov, the Karbonos of every Yom Tov. And perhaps you can understand this better in line with what the Sfasemis tells us. The Kana is Kinosi B'Soicham. Pinchas didn't just rise up and say, I cannot take this Chilul Hashem. Klal Yisrael cannot fall like this. Pinchas rose up and said, Klal Yisrael, what's the matter with you? And indeed he instilled a desire of defending the honor of Shekhinah into every single Yid. That's why Kadosh Baruch Hu says, the Kana is Kinosi B'Soicham. He implanted B'Soicham, this feeling, this natural will to be Mekadosh Shem Shemayim, even with Mesiras Nefesh, and to run from a Chilul Hashem. And that's why as a reward he was given the Kahuna, because that's the job of a Kohen. To be Ma'or through his Maisim, the rest of the Bnei Yisrael. The Kohen is the Shliach, to be Makriv their carbon. So as a result of Pinchas' action, and as we now understand that Pinchas includes Nadav and Avihu, the carbon meant something else. The joy and the simcha of the carbon, of coming closer to the Yeshua HaShechina, was now in the hearts of all of Klal Yisrael. And that's why it's in Parshas Pinchas. And finally, sometimes the strongest message is the simplest message. The Sfasemis says why is the Parsha of the Tamidim, the Talmud Shel Shachar, Talmud Shel Bein Rabayim, the Musaf of all the Yom Tovim. Why is it the Dafka in Parshas Pinchas? Why? Dafka, the first weeks of the Bein HaMitzarim? A wake-up call for Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael. Do you have a craving for the Beis HaMikdash or not? Do you want the Yeshua HaShechina? The Kriya of the Parsha to a certain extent is as if we are makriv the Karbonos, kilu hikravayla, but it's to develop the Hishtaikakais. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you're going to cry now about the Beis HaMikdash. Do you know what you're crying for? Do you know how close you can come? Do you know what joy you can feel? Where are you? As we have mentioned many times, the Sfarim and Sfarim bring that the Bein HaMitzarim can be compared to an artist who sits down to make a sketch. And everyone knows he is the most colorful, beautiful artist. His paintings are alive. They're three-dimensional. You feel like you're mamish there. If there's a water, you feel like jumping in. But he sits down to the sketch, and he's using a dark black pencil. And everything seems so dull, so colorless, so lackluster. Someone says to him, what is it this? It's so depressing, it's so sad. And he says to him, don't you know the saying, you don't show a fool half a work. This is just the outline. Of course it's dark and dreary. The life is yet to come. That's what the Bein HaMetzarim are. It's dark, it's difficult. But the Torah is telling us, look at the instruction, look at the living color, look at the Yeshuas HaShechina, look at the joy, look at the Beis HaMikdash that could fill these outlines. Be patient, apply your imagination, work up your excitement and cheshek, and you never know whose neshama can come flying into you to give you that little bit of extra support and enthusiasm to make every tefillah, every carbon, every opportunity of becoming close to the Rebbeinu Shalom so much more meaningful. If we look at the word machzis in machzis hashekel, the tzaddik is in the middle of the word. The word begins mem ches, then you have the tzaddik, yud, and saf after the tzaddik. The tzaddik represents tzedakah. The ches and the yud, which are near the letter tzaddik, the ches before the tzaddik and the yud after the tzaddik, represent life, chai. Tzedakah brings life. The mem and the saf at the beginning, at the very beginning and the very end of the word machzis, spells the word mes. So in the word machzis, you have tzedakah, which is the center of the word. You have chai, which surrounds the tzedakah. And at the far end of the word, the beginning and the end, you have mes. And this is to teach us that when a person engages in a life of tzedakah, he becomes surrounded by chai, and the mes is pushed off and broken apart to the greatest degree. It's the furthest from him, and the mem is at the beginning of the word, and the saf at the end of the word. As Chazal tell us, with tzedakah tafel mimavas. Pinchas placed himself into a great danger. Bein adam l'makay and bein adam l'chaveira. The pasuk says in Tehillim, "Vayamid Pinchas vayifalel." It doesn't say vayispalel; it says vayifalel. Pinchas came screaming to the Rebbeinu Shalom, why so many people are dying. Sha'asa plilois in kainai. He spoke very bold to our Kadosh Baruch Hu. He demanded to know why so many people are dying. He wanted it to stop. The Gemara says in Masechtas Sanhedrin, Bikshu Malachi Yesharis l'dachvei. The Malachi Yesharis wanted to push him away. How can you speak that way to the Rebbeinu Shalom? Amar lahem, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu said to the Malachim, Hanichilai, leave him alone. Kanoi ben kanoihu. Meishuv chema ben meishuv chemahu. His family history is that of Kanais. His family history is that of being a zealot. His family history is that of being someone who takes away Kadosh Baruch Hu's wrath. In other words, what he is saying, what he is screaming is purely l'shem shemayim, purely out of the tzar for Klal Yisrael. He is willing to risk his own life to save others. He has permission to speak this way. But l'maisa, there was a judgment over here. And it was decided that Pinchas had a right to speak that way. But he didn't wait for a judgment. He first ran and screamed and yelled, HaKadosh Baruch Hu saved Klal Yisrael. In terms of bein adam l'chaveiroi, of course Pinchas put himself into danger. He could have easily been killed by Shevet Shimon. As a matter of fact, the Gemara says, had Zimri turned around and seen Pinchas coming toward him with the spear, and Zimri would have killed him in self-defense, Zimri technically would have not been wrong. So the Vilna Gaon says, Amar the Kavar. So the Pasuk says, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen, Heishiv es chamasi mi'al b'nei Yisrael. He turned away my wrath from Klal Yisrael. The word machzis, mem, ches, tzadik, yud, saf, and the word chamasi, ches, mem, saf, yud, are almost the same letters with the exception that there is no tzadik in the word chamasi. Besides for the fact that there is no tzadik in the word chamasi, it's exactly the opposite of the word machzis, as explained earlier. In the word machzis, you have the mem at the very beginning of the word, the saf at the very end of the word. The word mes is divided and separated to the greatest degree. Chai, life, ches and yud, is the closest. It surrounds the tzaddik of tzedakah. In the word chamasi, it's just the opposite. The ches and the yud are at the beginning and at the end of the word. So the word chai is separated to the greatest degree, and the word nesrach manalitzlan is right next to each other, mem sof. So the word chamasi, my wrath, is dangerous. The pasuk says, however, explains the Vilna Gaon, that Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen Heshiv es chamasi. He turned around the word chamasi. The word chamasi, which has chai at the extreme and nes close to each other, was turned around by Pinchas through his tzedakah. What Pinchas did was the greatest tzedakah. He was donating himself. He was Meiser Nefesh himself. And he turned around the word chamasi back to the word machzis, where the men and the saf are separated from each other, and the chai is close to each other, surrounding the tzaddik, the mitzvah of tzedakah, the mitzvah of Mesiras Nefesh. The Meshech Chochmah says that Pinchas is Mesiras Nefesh on two fronts. That is, his bold challenge to HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, also plilas and kaineh, as well as the physical danger that he put himself into, entering the tent of the Nasi of Shevet Shimon, is represented in the pasuk Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen. That Pinchas risked his life physically to battle for the Shayim that we find by Elazar. When Aaron HaKohen was nifter, and the Anani HaKavod left them suddenly, many of the Yidden were frightened, and they began to turn around and run back. And the Bnei Levi demanded that they return. They refused. So they battled them. Who chased after those who were running away and battled them? Shevet Levi. Who was the Nasi of Shevet Levi? Elazar. Therefore the pasuk says Pinchas ben Elazar. Ben Elazar was Meiser Nefesh himself, even if he had to fight his brother, although he was putting himself into physical danger. He was also Ben Aaron. Chazal tell us by the Naisa of the Yegel, Aaron wanted to push them off until tomorrow, saying, Mutab, sheyitlu hasir chayvi, rather that I should be considered the one who made the Yegel, the Ayyavdu Yisrael, but let me try to save Klal Yisrael. So we see Aaron was willing to give up his own Olam Haba in order to save Klal Yisrael. Pinchas, in a sense, was taking that same chance when he spoke so boldly to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So he was Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen. He was willing to risk his life physically and even risk his neshama. So he took the good traits of his father Elazar as well as the Mesiras Nefesh of his grandfather Aaron. That's how the Meshech Chochmah explains it. Indeed, we quoted the Gemara beforehand that when Pinchas spoke so boldly to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, V'yamid Pinchas v'yafalel, V'lamid shasa plilis im kainei, so he said the Malachi Yasharis wanted to push him away, and the HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, leave him alone. He is Kanai ben Kanaihu. He is Neshev Chema ben Neshev Chema. When we say ben Kanai, who are we referring to? According to the Meshech Chochmah, the was referred to Elazar HaKohen, because he's the one who gave the command for Shevet Levi to turn those Yidden back. The Marsha, however, in the Chidushei Agados, said that Ben Kanai means he is an Einokol of Levi. Levi went to risk his life to save Dinah and to attack the entire city of Shechem. But who was Levi's partner? Shimon. Dr. Marsha, this is what the pasuk is emphasizing. Pinchas took the good traits of his parents, and he went out to risk his life, the same way Levi went out to risk his life, to separate Dinah. Zimri was also from Shevet Shimon. He should have also taken the good traits of his grandfather, but he didn't. So when the Gemara says Pinchas is a Kanai ben Kanai, it refers to Levi. When the Gemara says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said Pinchas is a Neshev Chema ben Neshev Chema, someone who turns away HaKadosh Baruch Hu's wrath, the son of someone who turned away HaKadosh Baruch Hu's wrath, the reference over here is to Aaron HaKohen, says the Marsha, which we can understand both with the Grozvat and the Meshech Chochmah's Vat. Aaron HaKohen risked his life to save Klal Yisrael, risked his Olam Haba to save Klal Yisrael. Aaron HaKohen also was the Oyev Shalom v'Roidev Shalom. He personified the tzaddik in tzedakah. He created the word machzis, turning around the word chamasi. Through his tzedakah, he separated death and brought in life, turning around chamasi, which is the opposite. Indeed, the Marsha says when the pasuk says, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen Heshiv es chamasi, the word Heshiv es chamasi, that he turned around my wrath, refers both to Pinchas and to Aaron HaKohen. The pasuk is praising Pinchas and his parents over here. In other words, when a person takes the good deed of a father, or a good trait that a father or grandfather has, and continues it, he generates the chus for himself and his parents. There's a collective koyach of chus over here. We see the tremendous importance over here of trying to find good traits that one's parents had or grandparents had, and then to continue the dafka in that line and to be ma'aseh nefesh oneself, especially in those paths that we know our parents took an extra interest in, or our grandparents took an extra interest in, because you have a collective chus. The Ramban explains that there are elements of the father's neshama in the child, the grandfather's neshama in the child, and everyone has their task on this world that they have to accomplish, and it's incumbent upon the child to continue on from where the parent left off, because it could be that the avoid of the parent is a set. The grandfather had to do what he can do, the father had to do what he can do, and the child has to continue on. So if one knows that a grandfather or father gave a lot of tzedakah, or was very careful with davening, or very careful with lashon hara, whatever the case may be, as much as you have to be careful with all mitzvahs, there is a stress on putting emphasis on continuity. Take hold of the good thing that your father or grandfather or great-grandfather did and continue it. This may be the reason you're here. And it also means that you have a special siyata d'shmaya, special divine help in that regard, because you're continuing a mission that has already been started. Like Chazal say, Torah machzeres al achsan yeshalah. The Torah comes back to the same inn. But it's not automatic. It's only if you are oisem ma'aseh avosav, the Gemara says. It's only if you are continuing in the ways of your father that started a certain project, or put an emphasis on a certain Indian taiv in their life, whatever mitzvah of Yiddishkeit it is, whatever they put the nuance on. In a sense, simply being a grandchild or a son of a person obligates you to continue in that direction. Naturally, if we're talking about something positive. Now, it's hard to base things on this when it comes to these kinds of stories. But on the other hand, you know what the Sams Rav said in general about stories that have to do with Amunas, Tzadikim, Yerushalayim. If you believe that every story is true, he said, you're a fool. If you believe that it can't be true, then perhaps this person will not be kairos. Several years ago, there was a story in the Mishpacha magazine about a young man whom it was presumed that he had passed away. And then it turned out that he didn't. Somehow he was revived. For 17 minutes he was in this state of clinical Nishdivelt, Nishianavelt, so to speak. And later on, when he awoke, he told his family all sorts of different things. Things that he could have possibly not known without some type of divine help. And he described his experience. He described that he was facing this din, l'mayla. He asked about certain rabbanim that are alive because they were part of his bezdin. Sforim HaKadoshim bring that there are three different types of entities that one can be judged by. Malachim, tzadikim that were once alive in this world, and tzadikim that are alive now on this world. Perhaps we know who they are, or perhaps they are from the 36 hidden tzadikim. The worst is to be judged by malachim, because they don't understand. What do you mean, you sinned? What does that mean, a Yetzer Hara? Tzadikim that were once alive, well, at least they can understand what a taiva is. And the best bezin to have are tzadikim who are alive now, because they know what the Yetzer Hara is. They're experiencing it right now. Why does one person get to have one kind of bezin and another person get to have a different kind of bezin? Well, that too is explained. We're the ones who decide in the course of our life what type of bezin we're going to have. When you're down people at kafchos, and your general attitude with people is a pleasant one, and you're always looking to bring out the best, and you run from machlokes, and you run away from lashon hara, and you're always saying something nice about someone, so you get that kind of a bezin. In any event, so this young man described rabbanim that were judging him, and he went through his whole life, the questions that they asked him, the difficulties of his din. And one of the nekudas that he expressed was that they told him he has a grandfather who was a big Baal Machnes Eirech and did a tremendous amount of chesed, particularly for Almanis and Yisraelim, and it was incumbent upon him to continue. And if he would not commit himself to continue, then he would remain up there in the Olam HaEmes, and another baby would have to be born to the family that would have another chance of continuing it. But this family collectively had a mission of a certain amount of chesed that had to be accomplished. The grandfather did whatever he could, but someone else had to pick it up from there. And this idea essentially is being presented to us over here. Pinchas' koyach was, he wasn't acting alone. He drew from the midas tayvais, he drew from the Mesiras Nefesh of his grandparents. He connected himself to Elazar HaKayin when it came to Kanas. He connected himself to Aaron HaKayin when it came to Mesiras Nefesh for Klal Yisrael. Vis-a-vis his dealings with the Rebbeinu Shalayla, he was taking a chance, being a little bit more aggressive, being very assertive, and the Malachim didn't push him away. They couldn't push him away because the Rebbeinu Shalom said he is continuing the Mesiras Nefesh of his grandparents. He has an extra L'siyata D'Shmai. It was mentioned many times the story that the Maras Chayes writes. His father appeared to him in a dream after he passed away. He was dressed in the most beautiful clothes, a crown on his head, very majestic clothes, but he was barefoot. And his father told him, I was Mekayim all the mitzvahs, but the one thing I didn't do was I didn't go around and collect tzedakah for others. I didn't walk from door to door and take those bizyonos. Really get into situations that I didn't want to for the sake of someone else. I gave a lot of tzedakah, but I didn't walk to collect tzedakah. So please be mashlim that mitzvah for me. For the clothes that we have up here are the mitzvahs that we are Mekayim down there. So I beg of you, he asked his son, I need a pair of shoes. The Welt says a Vart, I heard this b'shem Rav Pamela Zangesund. If you say a Kaddish for a neshama and Shemayim, that's like sending a postcard to that neshama. If you learn a pair of Mishnayim for a neshama and Shemayim, that's like sending a letter to that neshama. Doing a chesed for another yid, that is like sending a package to that neshama. We mentioned also beforehand that it's brought down b'shem Harizal, there is something called Iber Neshama. And that means that when anyone is Ma'asenevish himself for a mitzvah, it is shayach that a particular tzaddik that put a nuance on that mitzvah helps him out. There's a certain hizdafkes rucha berucha, there's a certain courage the person may have, a certain drive that comes from a source beyond his ability. We've mentioned many times what Bechayza said, the one who was Ma'asenevish himself for the mitzvah of kibbut avein has the chutz of Abaya coming along with him because Abaya never had parents. And he was always mekana others who could be mekayim the mitzvah of kibbut avein. So he comes along to be mechazik those who perform the mitzvah with Mesiras Nefesh. So Pinchas drew on the koiches of his grandparents over here. He jumped into it, not asking whether he will or will not be successful. He knew something had to be done. He decided to do it. And once he started, he had koiches that helped him. That's why there's such a stress on Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKayin, that he was Kanoi ben Kanoi, Heshev Chamasi ben Heshev Chamasi. The Zohar HaKadosh says that as Pinchas was about to kill Zimri, he was so frightened that his neshama left him. And the neshama of Nadav ben Avihu came back into him. In other words, when his neshama returned, he didn't return alone. He had koiches. He had the koiches of his uncle. The Zohar even teaches Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKayin. Pinchas, who was until now ben Elazar, now also became ben Aaron HaKayin because the neshama of Nadav ben Avihu would be with him to help him. And that is perhaps the reason that Parshas Pinchas introduces the Bein HaMetzarim to us. Parshas Pinchas that has the Karbanis of the Yom Tovim. Parshas Pinchas that talks about Chalukas Aretz, how to divide the land. Parshas Pinchas that talks about koiches that a yid has to battle an environment that is alien to Kedusha. This is the first week of the Bein HaMetzarim. The message being, don't allow yourself to be crushed by the bleak forecast of Golus. Don't say the world is so dark that where's our Yeshua going to come from? Because the Kadosh Baruch Hu says, you may feel you don't have the koiches to be able to be mechanech, to teach, to educate, to overcome the nesyonis and the tumah. But all I'm asking you is dive in and try. And once you try, you'd be surprised at who can come along to help you, at what kind of the siyata d'shmaya can be suddenly inserted into you. And from one moment to the next, you can feel like a different person. Because the truth is, with the proper Mesiras Nefesh, you can be a different person. In Yiddish, a sarcastic or sneering remark is sometimes referred to as a glach zertel, literally a straight word. What it sort of means is a straight hit. The Rav Shitzer once said, there is nothing as distorted or crooked as this so-called straight word. He also said, there is nothing as straight as a crooked ladder. A ladder that is straight, mamish upright, in a complete vertical position is difficult to climb and even harder to come down. But if it's tilted just a little, that makes it much more accessible and safer. So, in a sense, there is nothing as straight as a crooked ladder. And the third thing that Rav said was, there is nothing as wholesome as a broken heart. If we can take a closer look at this, the inyan represents basically what the Nisayan for every Yid is. We all have certain characteristics. We all have certain elements that are basically part of our nature. Some people by nature are just nice. Some people by nature are rough. And everyone has to use their particular talent or their particular natural drive, l'shem shemayim. L'shem shemayim, you have to sometimes put your foot out. There has to be someone that goes out there and he's loichem mochamas Hashem. And vaday, of course, 1,000-fold more. There has to be someone that goes out there to promote shalom, to generate peace and harmony, to teach how to get along with each other. And all of this is the kavod of Hashem Yisbarach if it is done l'shem the kavod of Hashem Yisbarach. But just like it's important for every person to use his particular nature l'shem shemayim, there are times in life where we are faced with a Nisayan, the ultimate Nisayan, where we have to go opposite our nature. And that was the greatness of the Nisayan of the Akedah, because Avraham Avinu personifies the very essence of Chesed. His ultimate Nisayan was the one time in his life where he was told that he would have to shecht his son. There is no question that in the case of Aaron HaKohen is synonymous with Shalom, with the term Oyev Shalom, V'roidev Shalom, Oyev Esabrias, Umakaver L'Torah. And there was no one that promoted as much peace and harmony. There was no one that drew people together as closely. There was no one that made sure that Shalom should reign in Klal Yisrael more so than Aaron HaKohen. That is why the Chet HaEgel was such a difficult Nisayan for Aaron HaKohen. He saw what happened to Hur. Hur was killed when he tried to be Mocha on the Chet HaEgel. And there was no question about it, Aaron HaKohen would have gladly been Moshe Nefesh himself. But here he had spent his entire life generating shalom, love and warmth between people, and now he was faced with a situation with the clock running out where he was in a position to fight and to demand punishment for the Rishayim and the wicked. This was the most difficult thing for Aaron HaKohen to do because it went against his nature. Rav Shlomo Lebracha in the Sefer Me'en Beis HaShe'eva, based on this, gives us a beautiful color to a famous medrash in this expression. We know what Chazal tell us. When this guy in Pinchas at Shehargul Zimri. Pinchas was not zeichet to become a Kohen until he killed Zimri. What was the problem? So the Gemara tells us in the Masechtas Vachim, then when the kahuna was given to Aaron HaKohen, it was only technically given, as the pasuk says, to Aaron and to his sons. They were anointed with him. And automatically included in that were subsequent generations that would be born to Aaron and his children that were already anointed. Pinchas was caught on the outside. On the one hand, he was born beforehand, so he doesn't automatically get the kahuna as a birthright. And on the other hand, there were no instructions to anoint Aaron, his sons, and his grandson. So Pinchas was left without any kahuna. However, now that Pinchas went and he killed Zimri, so Chazal tell us he was zeichet to kahuna. But why was he left out to start with? Why did Pinchas need a special gift? Why did he need a special chus? Because of your Mesiras Nefesh, he was zeichet to kahuna. Why was the inauguration of kahuna structured in such a way that left him stranded to begin with? Furthermore, Dr. Schwab, Pinchas, as well as all of his descendants to this very day, they go up on the Duchen when it's time for Berachas Kohanim, and they say the same nusach that their cousins do. They say, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'kdushasei shel ha'arayin v'tzivanu levarach es Am Yisrael b'yahav. Wait, Dr. Schwab. How can Pinchas and his children say this nusach? Asher kiddushanu b'kdushasei shel ha'arayin. As far as the kedusha of Aharon is concerned, Pinchas and his descendants are not included. He got a special gift of kahuna because of the fact that he killed Zimri. If he had the kedusha of Aharon, he would have not needed this special matana or this extra chus.
Elamah Yosefim here explains in the end Beis HaShe'eva that the Kedusha of Pinchas did not run independently of the Kahuna of Aaron HaKohen. Rather, it complemented the Kahuna of Aaron HaKohen. As explained earlier, Aaron HaKohen's very being was Oyev Shalom, V'Roidev Shalom, Oyev Esabrius, U'Mekarvan L'Torah. That was the way Aaron HaKohen kept families together. That was the way Aaron HaKohen stopped people from sinning. It was pure Ahava. The one time in Aaron HaKohen's life where Ahava was not working, and you had this fierce drive, the Yetzer Hara had generated such a panic, they wanted that ego right then and there, and Aaron HaKohen could not push them off. So Aaron HaKohen had a choice. His choice was Kanois, and he would have taken his own life in his hands. He saw what happened to Hur, but that didn't bother Aaron HaKohen. Chazal make it very clear. What worried Aaron HaKohen was that Klal Yisrael would never have a kapara for killing him. And Aaron HaKohen's other choice was to apply his normal method of Ahavas Habriyos. Okay, relax, take it easy, we'll discuss this, we'll compromise, we'll figure something out, let's make a meeting, and hopefully, of course, his ultimate goal was to defer them until Moshe Rabbeinu comes back. But he knew that was very dangerous. Anything could happen in the interim. And he also knew that he was risking his own Olam Haba. But he did not want Klal Yisrael to fall to the point that was too low for them to be able to come back. Aaron HaKohen made the decision not to fight. As a result, even though he did that with Mesiras Nefesh, the kahuna of Aaron HaKohen was missing this nekuda. This nekuda of shleimus, where sometimes what is straight has to be crooked. Where as much as you are the symbol of Ahava, sometimes it is necessary to fight. Sometimes it is necessary to go against that. And, of course, we cannot talk about Aaron HaKohen. We can't talk about any of the members of the Dar HaMidbar. We have no musig as to what their greatness is. But the pashut, the lesson that Chazal want us to derive from this is that Aaron HaKohen's kahuna was missing this nekuda. He did not go against his grain. And therefore, Aaron HaKohen had the Kiddush of kahuna. He was anointed, Kohen Gadol. His children were anointed Kohanim. Their subsequent generations would be Kohanim. But the Rebbeinu Shalom wanted a way that Aaron HaKohen, who Lemaisa only avoided the fight for the sake of Klal Yisrael, the Rebbeinu Shalom wanted an opportunity for that shleimus of kahuna to be complete. And therefore, by design, Pinchas was left out. When Pinchas had the opportunity to fight for Klal Yisrael, and he risked his life, and he exercised that Maisa Kanois, with no other cheshbonos coming into play, he didn't generate an independent line of kahuna. Adarab, Pinchas was now mashlim the pagam in the Kiddush of Aaron HaKohen. There was a full Kiddush of Aaron HaKohen now. And when any Kohen, whether he is an Einikel of Pinchas, or he is an Einikel of Aaron HaKohen through one of Aaron's other children or Einikel, when they say, Asher Kiddushanu b'Kedushasei shel Aaron, the Kedusha of Aaron includes two things. The general overriding mitzias of who Aaron HaKohen was, and that was Oyev Shalom V'Roidev Shalom, as well as the ability to present an angry face and to defend and to yell, even with Mesiras Nefesh, if need be. And the emes is, as the Meshech Chochmah explains, that Pinchas exercised both of these methods of defending the honor of the Rebbeinu Shalom in the course of his actions. On the one hand, of course, Pinchas was the ultimate kanoi by risking his life to kill Zimri. By the same token, Chazal tell us that Pinchas was the one who stopped the Megeifa. And how did he stop the Megeifa? Chazal dash in the pasuk Vayamei Pinchas Vayifalel Sha'asa Plilos in Kainai. He spoke very bold to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Pinchas stood there and said, "Why is this happening to Klal Yisrael? Al Eila, because of these, Yeharzu Chafdal Elef Mi Yisrael." And the Gemara tells us in the Seftas and Hedron that Pinchas was very, very close to the border of, it's hard to say, chutzpah, Keneged HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but he was taking a chance. So in a sense, Pinchas exercised both options that Aaron HaKohen had to choose from. In the case of Pinchas, he did both. Mesiras Nefesh to kill Zimri, as well as a Mesiras Nefesh for Klal Yisrael, even taking a chance with his own relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak. Credit is also given to Elazar HaKohen. Right after Aaron HaKohen was nifter, the Anani HaKavod left, and Klal Yisrael was frightened. They saw the threat of war, they saw the enemies coming, and they panicked, and they ran back. They started to run back toward Mitzrayim. the Bnei Levi chased them and battled them. L'man kavod Yisrael v'HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the one who issued that command, the Yerushalmi says at the beginning of the Masechtas Yuma, quotes the Meshech Chachma, was the Nasi of Shevet Levi, and that would be Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen. And Meir Simcha says that that's how you teach the first pasuk of our Seder. Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen. Pinchas was not a person that was just overwhelmed with a passion of anger and went out to kill. His act over here was controlled, and it was perfectly balanced. He was willing to do anything for the covet of Hashem Yisbach. And he was willing to go in opposite directions. On the one hand, he was Pinchas ben Elazar. Elazar was the one who gave the command for the Bnei Levi to chase down the Bnei Yisrael, and if need be, even use force to bring them back, to prevent them from going to Mitzrayim. If necessary, you have to act this way. And Pinchas was willing to do that. By the same token, he was also Ben Aaron HaKohen, who risked his own relationship with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu so that Klal Yisrael should not fall too low by the Chet Ego. Pinchas followed in his footsteps as well. So up. And if you see the way the Meshech Chachma tied to the pasuk, it's mamish the same thing that Rav Schwab says. Pinchas, who was both Ben Elazar, ready to fight, Ben Aaron HaKohen, ready to even give up his own Olam Haba, not to fight, to be Meisanevish himself to defend Klal Yisrael. Pinchas, who had the shleimus, who was willing to do anything l'man kavod shemayim. He was the one that Hesed of Chamasim al Bnei Yisrael, that stopped the Negeifa, and L'chein Emer, and therefore, because he had both of these Nekudais, Hineni Noisiloi is Brisi Shalom. Apparently the word Shalom would mean Shleimus. He was Mashlim, the Shleimus of Kahuna, and the Hoisaloi Ulazari Achrav Beris Kahuna Soilam. Why? Why was he included in Beris Kahuna Soilam? If anything, if Pinchas wasn't included in the original inauguration of Kahuna, so there should be a separate line of Kahuna. It's not the same Kiddush of Aaron. So the pasuk says, no, it's not an independent Kiddush. Adrabah, it enhanced, it complemented the Kiddush of Aaron. Tachas Asher Aleph. Kine Lelekav, he had the kanot to be mashlim when Aaron HaKohen was missing to a certain degree, to a certain tiny nekuda. And Vayachapro B'nei Yisrael, and he was also synchronized with the basic need of Aaron HaKohen. A will to be Moiser Nefesh himself, for a kapara for Klal Yisrael, because he had both of these nekudas together. Therefore, he was not only Zaycha to his own kahuna, he was mashlim the kahuna of Aaron. Furthermore, the Meir Simcha explains that there are two inyanim in mitzvahs. There is one mitzvah to be noikein in those that are rishoyim, to speak out, to defend against those who attack the kedusha of Torah and of Klal Yisrael, to prevent others to learn from their actions. But there's a certain yesod over here. If you're going to do that, don't expect any schar down here in this world. The schar for erlecha kanais, if it is indeed l'shem shemayim, and you don't have any personal vengeance mixed in over here, that schar comes li'olam haba. Because as far as this world is concerned, you can't really say that he did something which is good. As a general rule, kanais backfires. But there is a time and a need for it. And the same way it backfires when it's not employed properly, it backfires if it had to be employed and we were scared to confront it. On the other hand, the other method, the method of chesed, of ahava, not only do you get the schar for that in Olam Haba, but you reap the benefits down here, as the Mishnah says. You eat the payers, you get the interest and the dividends down here in this world, you get the income, and the Hakeren Kayem is the principle remains li'olam haba. And the Meshech Chachma quotes Psukim and Midrashim from Chazal to substantiate this yesod. But that's what he says. Again, Kanois is only something you will be rewarded for li'olam haba, and Chesed is something you are rewarded in li'olam haba and olam hazeh as well. Now the Medrash says, the din shayital eschara. It is right that Pinchas should get rewarded for what he did. After all, look at this great Mesiras Nefesh, look at the whole story of what Pinchas did. Now, what does the Medrash have to stress this? It is right that he should get rewarded. I mean, who is suggesting that he ought not to get rewarded for what he did? But the Meshech Chachma, because there's a kasha. The reward for Kanois, and he bases this on Sukkim and Yishai and so on, is only li'olam haba. How come Pinchas got rewarded down here as well? And the answer is because you have to take the whole picture over here and see both aspects of what Pinchas did. The Medrash says, "B'dini sheyitul eschara." It is right that he should take his reward. Why? Sheheshev es chamasim al b'nei Yisrael. Because it's not only that he killed Zimri. For that, perhaps he would have just been rewarded li'olam haba. But he also stopped the Megeifa. by screaming and defending Klal Yisrael. So for the other aspect of what he did, he is zeicha to schar down here in this world. What is the danger of kanoas? The danger of kanoas is knowing whether or not you did it l'shem shemayim. Reb Chaim Brisker said he once noticed the following scene. A man was standing by the Amid ready to daven. He had yard sight that day, and someone else came in and asked him to move. He said, He said he also has yard sight, and furthermore he's a member of the shul, and therefore he has kedim. So the man who was standing there originally had no choice. He was angry, he grunted, but he had to leave. The second person who davened for the Amid, perhaps he was not aware of what the Chofetz Chaim says, that sometimes moving away to let someone else daven is a bigger chus than your Amid, Yehesh Me'Rabba, but let's leave that for a different time. The second person who davened for the Amid not only davened for the Amid, but he also landed. And apparently he made some type of mistake in his kriya. And the first person, the one who was sent away from the Amid, began to yell. He began to yell to correct him. And then the person who was landing made another mistake. And this other person began to yell even louder. Dr. Chaim. Anyone who didn't witness the whole scene will say, look, this person is upset because he's very makpid on hearing Kriyas HaTorah properly, and the first person simply did not prepare enough. But I witnessed the whole scene, and I know that when he was yelling, it had nothing to do with Kriyas HaTorah. He was venting his frustration now that he was sent away from the Amid. He just found a kosher platform to do it on. And this, of course, is the great danger of kanoas. When you scream and yell for Kvod Shemayim, you have to do some thorough soul searching to make sure that indeed it is pure Kvod Shemayim. It's not your personal vengeance that is cloaked in Kvod Shemayim. And that's why perhaps the Meir Simcha tells us, as you saw, that the real reward for kanoas comes in Olam Haba, because only then are you going to know whether you really meant it l'shem shemayim or not. Here you can think you mean it l'shem shemayim. That person himself may have thought that he was just correcting a Bal Kaira, not realizing that he was screaming at someone who sent him away from the Amid. On the other end, if you are spreading Kvod Shemayim through Chesed, so you're in much safer terrain. And that's what the pasuk is telling us, perhaps. The dinu sheyitzal aschara. Pinchas is going to get paid for that kanoas. How do I know he did it l'shem shemayim? Because look what else he did. In the very same act, Heishav of Chamasi, he risked his own life for the benefit of Klal Yisrael. This balance showed that it was all l'shem shemayim.
This is the first week that our Kriyas HaTorah coincides with Eretz Yisrael. You see, in a year like this, where the second day of Shavuos is Shabbos, in Eretz Yisrael, where they don't have a second day of Yom Tov, they read Parshas Nasai, the day after Shavuos. For us, however, in Chutz La'aretz, we read the Kriya of the second day of Shavuos. We didn't read Parshas Nasai till the next week. As a result, Eretz Yisrael was a week ahead of us. When they read Ba'aloischa, we read Nasai. When they read Shlach, we read Ba'aloischa. When they read Kairach, we read Shlach. When they read Chukas, so here we caught up. That was last week, because we read Chukas and Balak together. And this week, Parashas Pinchas, we coincide. We are aligned with Eretz Yisrael. Everything is Hashgacha Pratis. Because this is the first week of the 3 weeks, and our whole hearts and mind are directed to Eretz Yisrael, where we understand where is our chiyus, where we understand that Galus is temporary at best. So Menela, before the 3 weeks, we have to catch up to Eretz Yisrael. By the time the 3 weeks comes, the first Shabbos of the 3 weeks, our Kriya and their Kriya have to be the same. Our hearts and mind are in Eretz Yisrael. The truth is, if you take a closer look, the entire Parashas Pinchas represents our longing for the Geula. Let's start from the beginning of the Parsha. Who is Pinchas? Chazal tell us Pinchas is Eliyahu. That Pinchas and Eliyahu were the same person. As a matter of fact, take a look at the Targum Yonasan ben Azil on the pasuk L'chaim Emar Hineni Noisin Loi Es Brisi Shala. Here is the lashon of the Yonasan ben Azil. The Abidne I have turned him into, that is, I have turned Pinchas into, Pinchas and Eliyahu, the same person, Malach into a Malach, Kiyam, who will last, V'yachayla Alma, and live forever, to bring the ultimate good news, and that is L'mavasra Geulta B'Seif Yamai, to bring us news of the Geula at the end of the day. This is where Pinchas, the Eliyahu, got the bracha, in this pasuk of L'chaim Amar, Hineni Noisin Loi Es Brisi Shala. Let's go weiter. The pasuk goes on to say, "The Hoisle Lazari Achrav Beris Kuvnas Olam Tachas Hashakini Velikav V'Yechaper Bnei Yisrael," and then
we mention the names of the people that Pinchas killed. V'shem ish Yisrael hamuka asher huka es hamidyanis Zimri ben Salu, Nesi ben Salu Shimayni. V'shem ha'isha hamuka hamidyanis Kalbi Batsur. It's interesting to note that at the end of Parshas Balak, where the Torah actually describes how Pinchas killed them and the many nisim that occurred, their names are not mentioned. Not Zimri's name and not Kalbi's name. All it says at the end of Balak is Vayavai Achar Ish Yisrael El Akuba Vayitkar Shneim Ish Yisrael Ve'esa Isha El Kavasa, but no mention of who they actually were. Why is this so? The Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh explains that everything is Hashgacha Pratis. The name that a person has reflects the inner essence of his neshama. It is said that that is the time in every father's life when he has Ruach HaKodesh, when he names his child. When a person is chote, he is pogam his name. He disconnects himself from his name, from his shlichus on this world. The circulation between him and his name is cut off. Therefore it says, V'shem Rishayim Yirkav, the name of Rishayim right away. Reb Meir was bodek b'shem. He can tell from a person's name who he was. He can tell from a person's name whether the person was living up to his name. What if Sharish and Neshama was? At the end of Parshas Balak, during the actual Chet, Zimri ben Sali lost his name. Pinchas restored his name. Pinchas separated him from Chet, brought back the Kedusha to his Neshama, and brought him to a Tikkun. No Yiddish Neshama is lost forever. Everyone has to come back to his Shirish. Pinchas brought Zimri back to his Shirish instantly, and therefore the pasuk makes it very clear. Although he had no name at the end of Parshas Balak, but over here at the beginning of Parshas Pinchas, the same Ish Yisrael, he is back to his Shirish as to what a shlichus was within Klal Yisrael. Zimri ben Sali, the Sibes Avlo Shemayni. Pinchas succeeded in separating him from Chet, so much so that he was restored to his name. So this is the Parshas Pinchas, where we see that there is a kayach that a Yid is brought back to his name, brought back to his Shirish. As the process begins, where we're all going to start back to our Shirish in Eretz Yisrael. And that's why you have the counting of Klal Yisrael in this week's Parsha, enumerating exactly who everyone is. As the 3 weeks begin, we are reminded that it doesn't make a difference how far you drifted away from your Shirish. You're going to have to come back. Your chelik in Eretz Yisrael is your only real Shirish. And you will have to work your way through, separate yourself from Chet, regardless of what it's going to take, regardless of how long it's going to take, until you are brought back to that Shirish and the Geula can come. All of the Yidden are counted in Parshas Bamidbar before Shavuos, because every Yid gets his chelik HaTorah. And as we wander away, and as we stray away from our Shirish, we are once again reminded of who you are and where you come from in Parshas Pinchas as we begin the 3 weeks, because that's the avodah of the 3 weeks. To bring all that is lost back, to bring all that has been spread so far apart, so distant from where it came from, back to its Shirish. And that's why it's back in this week's Sedra, where you have Hashem's name added to the names of Klal Yisrael. Reuven b'char Yisrael, b'nei Reuven, Chanoich mishpachas hachanoichi. Mishpachas hachanoichi. Chanoich from the family of hachanoichi. A hey added to the beginning of the word, a yud added to the end of the word. That's Rashi, because the Ummah Olam were making fun of Klal Yisrael. They said they really think that they are children of their fathers, that they have their shirish all the way up to the Shvatim. If the Mitzrayim had total control over Klal Yisrael, do you think that the Mitzrayim are not mixed into their heritage? In Begufam Hayumayshlim, says Rashi, Kal v'chayim ben Sheseyah, Lefikach, therefore, Hitel HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shmai Aleh, Hashem gives the stamp of His name on Klal Yisrael. Hey mitzad zeh, a hey from the beginning, the yud mitzad zeh, and a yud on the other side. To teach us, Meyed ani Aleim, I testify on them, Sheheim b'nei Aviseyah. So we go through all of Klal Yisrael, and to every Shevet in Klal Yisrael, Hashem's name is added to attest to the fact that Yidden have a shaychus to their shayrish. Kival Yidach imenu nidach. Regardless of how far you have gone astray, everybody will be brought back, and you will be told exactly who you are and where you came from and what your tafkid is. And in the end, that explains l'chayra why this testimony of the Yud and the Hey, Hashem's name, appears only here in Parshas Pinchas. How come not, let's say, at the beginning of Ban Midbar, where Klal Yisrael is counted? Because it's a different kind of counting. Over there, before Shavuot, the counting is a handing out of assignments. Here in Parshas Pinchas, the first week of the 3 weeks, the counting isn't to assign people what they're supposed to do. That was done already. The counting is to bring people back who have veered away from their shirish. The counting over here is a testimony to the fact that no one is going to be pushed away. It doesn't make a difference how far down you have fallen, how far away you have ran. You have to come back. And you will be told exactly who you are and where you come from. In a sense, this census, which is the third and the last time that Yidden are going to be counted, is the most important, because on the basis of this census, Eretz Yisrael was divided. So our chelik in Eretz Yisrael comes from this third counting. And of course, the halachis of Yerusha, the story of the Bnei Salavchad, who came and requested their chelik in Eretz Yisrael, and the whole story of the Gairo, and how the lots were drawn, and how the Urim Tumim fit in, and how everyone got their chelik in Eretz Yisrael and was told until Mashiach comes, this is your chelik. It goes to your child, and to his child, and to his child, and even if they sell it, it has to come back to him, and even if we are in Galus, we are going to come back to our chelik in Eretz Yisrael. It's all in Parshas Pinchas. Because again, this is the first of the 3 weeks. This is where we are told, your avodah for the next 3 weeks is work on getting back to this. What else do we have in this week's parasha? When Moshe Rabbeinu heard from Hashem the words, you shall give to the daughters of Tzilavcha their portion, so Moshe thought perhaps Hashem has annulled his decree that forbids me to enter Eretz Yisrael. You shall give. Givaldik, said Moshe Rabbeinu. He intends to bring me there so that I myself can distribute the land. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, no, that's not what I meant. I merely meant that you will aid Bnei Yisrael to attain the land by looking at it and blessing it. So Moshe Rabbeinu looks at the land with a kayach of bracha and is mispalel that Klal Yisrael should never lose their grasp, not until Mashiach comes. But every yid should be reminded that this is where his shirish is. That bracha of Moshe Rabbeinu to us is this week's Pasha, the first week of the Bein HaMetzarim. When Moshe Rabbeinu learned that Tzilavchad's daughters would inherit their father's property, so he reflected, the time has come for me to take my request of Hashem that my son should inherit my position. And Moshe begins to be mispaled for the future of Klal Yisrael. He says, do not let the community be like a flock without a shepherd. I wish one of my sons to take my place. And the Rebbeinu Shem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, I have already chosen the future leader. He who guards the fig tree shall eat its fruit, and he who serves his master shall be honored. Although your sons are as wise as your student Yeshua, and although neither can replace you, nevertheless, your sons are not equal to Yeshua in their love of the Torah. Yeshua invested his every last ounce of strength to gain wisdom. Because he loved the Torah so greatly, in his extreme eagerness to serve you, he disregarded his own dignity. He came to the Beis Medrash early each day and left late in order to arrange the benches and the mats for the students. Chazal tell us, Pnei Moshe, the face of Moshe, Kepnei Chano, is like the face of the sun. Pnei Yeshua, the face of Yeshua, is Kepnei Levana, like the moon. If you never saw the sun, the moon is quite bright. Chazal tell us, the young people of the generation said, Yeshua is so great. And the Zekanim Shevi Yosida said, Only Osebisha, Ola Osechlima. What an embarrassment to think that Yeshua is our leader. We remember Moshe Rabbeinu. So it seems that the Zekanim were speaking rather harshly of Yeshua. But there's a famous Torah from the Chavetz Chaim, they say it's from the Satmarav Zechayim Levracha. When they said, woe to this embarrassment, they didn't mean Chas v'Sholom Yeshua as an embarrassment. They said, woe to our embarrassment, that we didn't do what Yeshua did, because we were embarrassed. We were the Sheinei Yidden that came to the Shir and had our places prepared. Had we not been embarrassed, we also would have schlepped the benches and hung up the hangers and opened the windows. And then we would have been zeicha to what Yeshua was zeicha to. Woe to our embarrassment. That prevented us from becoming what Yeshua became. So this is the parsha where Hashem commands Moshe that he invest Yeshua with additional wisdom. Although Moshe was told to put one hand on Yeshua, he does it with a complete heart. Moshe rested both hands upon Yeshua. Moshe conveyed part of his inner essence to Yeshua and all future successors until Mashiach comes. It's Pashtusa the Moshe v'chol dor v'dor, the Zohar says. There was a nitzvah of Moshe Rabbeinu with all the leaders of Klal Yisrael. This was also a preparation for Klal Yisrael to be able to survive Galus, that they should have tzaddikim with the siyata d'shmaya to guide them and lead them, and to have within them a spark of Moshe Rabbeinu. This is also part of Parshas Pinchas, the first week of the Bein HaMetzarim, the week where everything was set into place so we can survive Galus and understand how to work our way out of it. V'yidaber Moshe l'Hashem leimar. Moshe was mispal and he begged, Yivkar Hashem alekei eluchas l'chol basar, ish al ha'eda. Please, provide a person so understanding of all of the needs of Klal Yisrael. Let him guide them. Who was Moshe Rabbeinu mispal for? The Medrash says, the Mashiach. For Mashiach it says, V'nocha olav ruach Elokim. Moshe Rabbeinu was mispal for all of the tzaddikim, for all of the gedolim throughout the generations, so that the Messiah of Torah can be handed from generation to generation. But his ultimate tefillah was for Melech HaMashiach. For what Yidden are going to read every Parshas Pinchas at the beginning of the Bein HaMetzarim, that their hopes for Geula should remain alive long enough for Mashiach to appear and to redeem us. And then what do you have at the end of Parshas Pinchas? The Karbanis of all the Yamim Tovim. You see, Karbanis are like our passport to Eretz Yisrael. The Yemunah Sitecha quotes from the Maharal. When Avraham Avinu asked Hashem, how do I know Klal Yisrael will be zeichet to inherit Eretz Yisrael? What if Chas v'Shalom their fate is going to be going that they will lose it? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu answered through the Karbanis. The Karbanis are our passport to Eretz Yisrael, especially the Karbanis of Parshas Pinchas, which are the Karbanis of all the Yamim Tovim. So what we're saying here is that we're so confident that this Parsha is setting us straight to understand the Bein HaMetzarim that it's as if it's already over, that we are already coming to the Beis HaMikdash to be on the regal, to be makar of these Karbanis. The end of Parshas Pinchas, the Karbanis of all the Yamim Tovim that we read about teach us, understand the beginning of the Parsha. Reach out for your shayrish to be reconnected to where you came from. Have that yearning in your heart for Eretz Yisrael, and you don't realize how close you are to actually being on the regal the next Yom Tov and being makar of these Karbanis of Simcha. Before, however, the Psukim at the end of Parshas Pinchas teach us about the Karbanis of Yamim Tovim. They teach us about the Karban Tamid, that they were makar every morning and every afternoon in the Beis HaMikdash. Chazal tell us Kol Zman that they were makar the Karban Tamid. Yerushalayim was protected. The walls of Yerushalayim could not be breached, could not be penetrated. Even when Yerushalayim was under siege, Chazal tell us they used to drop down a bucket of gold, and the enemies would put in a sheet for that. And they would use that to be makar of the Karban Tamid until someone told them, what are you doing? You're giving them the power to defend themselves. Kol Zman they are makar of that Karban, you will not be able to enter the city. So the next day when they dropped down a pot of gold, instead of putting in a sheet, they put in a chazer. That chazer clawed into the walls of Yerushalayim on its way up, and all of Eretz Yisrael shook, Dalet Meis Parsa, Dalet Meis Parsa. So again, everything about Parshas Pinchas cries, this is the way back to your Geula, out of Tumah back to Geula. And incidentally, but maybe a good week, and I'm talking to myself, please, not giving Mutter Chas v'Shalom to anyone, that we should be more makbid b'chalam of saying Karbanis before davening. This week, where all the Karbanis are explained to us. This week, where all the Karbanis are explained to us in light of our connection between Golus and Geula. The Zohar HaKadosh tells us, Rav Pinchas once met Eliyahu, and he said to him, say something which is going to improve our health. So he said to him, you should know that there are many malachim generated by the Chatayim of Klal Yisrael, and they are ready to prosecute. But when Yidden say the Parshas of Karbanos, and they really put their hearts to it and their emotions into it, all of those Chatayim are flipped to taif, to good. During a time, Chas v'Shalom, that dangers lurk when Klal Yisrael says the Parsha of Ketayros together, he told them, that puts a stop to everything. The Yizbatul Musliminayu. The Yada Harim brings, just like when a person bought a carbon. So first there was smicha, he leaned on the carbon, then he said vidui. Before someone says the Parsha of Karbanis, he should also think tshuva.
Finally, there are 168 sukkim in Parshas Pinchas, which is the gematria of Binyan Noah, the beautiful building for Beis HaMikdash, which stands there just waiting to come down if we understand Parshas Pinchas properly. It is also gematria of the word Hasayf Taiv, the end is good. The end of the 3 weeks will lead to Geula if we read Parshas Pinchas properly. It is also gematria Lecha Ulabanecha. For Moshe Rabbeinu instilled an Amunah, a Tefillah, and a Bracha for us throughout Golus, through this Parsha, to begin the Avodah of the Bein HaMetzarim, that is going to lead us back to where we all came from.
This shiur is distributed by Kol Hadas, 11 Steichenes Street, Yerushalayim. For donations, please call 02-5383-999. Fax 02-538-0267. Postbox 57035.